Welcome to Permeable Minds with Ethan and Yvonne.
Every episode, we'll be bringing you a new topic to share and discuss. Remember, there are no wrong answers, and all we ask is for you to keep an open mind.
We can't wait for you to take part and join in the conversation. Yvonne, I hope you brought your A game.
Well, did you notice I actually took my jumper off?
Oh.
Because this episode is about to get heated.
Mate, you don't even know. I made so many notes for this.
I'm really proud of you. Did you like my little bit of intel as well that I got for today?
I mean, I kind of felt like that was cheating.
Hey, I shared it. I shared my intel. I did debate whether to keep it for myself, but then I was feeling kind this morning.
I mean, maybe I should hire a professional researcher as well in future. And we'll see where that takes us.
Shout out to Tash for this episode. She is my celebrity gossip expert, which, by the way, is a little bit of a teaser for today's episode. But this episode comes at a really timely moment, not in history, let's not go wild, but it comes really timely in terms of our timeline for the podcast for a number of reasons. First of all, we felt there was so much that was said in last week's episode, whether streaming has changed the landscape of TV. As always, we always have a post-podcast discussion and we were just talking for ages, and then it kind of got us fueled and fired up for this week's episode. So we feel like this is leading on very, very nicely from it. Also, we answered our own question in the span it took us to record last episode and now, which we will definitely get into a little bit later. But before we jump in, Ethan, did we just want to recap on the results of the polls from last episode and just give a little bit of thanks to our listeners for their contributions?
Yeah, so for those of you who follow on Instagram, you may have seen the poll that we put out. We thank everyone who took part. It was quite interesting. I see you have the results right in front of you.
Yes. So the first question that we asked is, how do you watch TV? It was 55% said that they would binge it.
Okay.
Which means 45% said that they can pace themselves through TV shows, which for someone who also paces themselves and get kind of taken the piss out of on a weekly basis for doing so, I was very surprised at how much support I had. So I was pretty happy with that.
I mean, it's not too surprising, right?
Really?
Binging's not for everyone. And who's taking the piss out of you every week about this? It's not me.
Well, no, just mini roasts here and there. Keep me on my toes.
Yeah, that checks out.
And then we asked, how do you listen to music?
Oh, yes.
And
Oh, yes.
let me just get this straight. I agree that the shuffle button is really useful, and I agree with the shuffle button and I love it. So 93% said that every day I'm shuffling. Every day I use the shuffle button. It's great. So 7%, which was me and one other person, said that we listened to the full album. But can I just throw out there, I don't know whether I've mentioned this to you yet or whether I felt like I have, because I literally talked to you all the flipping time, so I don't know whether I've actually said it out loud or not, or just in my head, ready to say to you that albums such as The Weeknd, the latest Weeknd album.
Okay, yeah.
So I was listening to it on shuffle with a bunch of other tracks, like a couple of playlists that I have, and then a random track from The Weeknd plays where he's just speaking, he's just talking, and just audio comes in while I'm like living it up to Jay-Z or Rihanna or something, and it just doesn't make sense because it's not part of the Weeknd album. Do you know what tracks I'm on about?
I can't tell you the name of the tracks, but yeah, I kind of know what you're talking about.
So if anybody hasn't already listened to the new Weeknd album and would like to, there are some parts that are just audio. So it's just somebody talking. So of course, if you listen to that out of context of the album, it sounds bizarre.
One thing I would like to say, that all albums pretty much are audio.
Fuck's sake.
But I know what you're talking about. And in fact, a lot of hip-hop R&B albums, they traditionally have a lot of skits, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, like if you're on a shuffle and one of those comes in, yeah, it can be pretty jarring. I agree.
So I just wanted to say it and claim I do use the shuffle button, guys, but I also do love knowing and predicting the next song of each album, plus some albums really need it.
There are a few albums that I have to listen to in order, but possibly only for like the first few songs, because it goes from like intro into the next song seamlessly. So for me, it feels better to listen to at least those 3 songs in that order. I know one album off the top of my head that I do this with every time.
Fine.
And for anyone who knows, the album is Deloused in the Comatorium by the Mars Volta. So if anyone knows who they are, pat yourself on the back.
No flipping clue. What genre even is that? Did you even speak English?
They're kind of alternative rock, kind of quite a little hard, but it's not metal. So you don't have to look at me like that.
No, as soon as you said rock, I just rolled my eyes like, yeah, you've got me, Ethan. Don't have a fucking clue. The other thing I wanted to mention, so there was quite a few people that commented and recommended certain TV shows to us. I was pleasantly surprised at some of these new recommendations, but you said you've heard of and maybe watched quite a few, right?
Yeah, the ones that come to mind, I've seen This Is Us. I used to be really into Castle, so whoever sent that, I was like, oh, I mean, that was a surprising one. I didn't expect to see it there. I love Snowpiercer, the movie. I haven't watched the TV show. And yeah, I can't remember, there were some others. Ozark, I've heard of. I think I've heard of all of them. It's just like having the time to watch them all.
And as we know from last week's episode, Ethan has some good ones in the bag that he's refusing to watch because he's taking the piss and wanting to annoy me. So let's leave that at that.
But it will be the next one. That's what we established last episode.
Okay, at least you're keeping to your promises at least a week on. That's good stuff. Some of the others, I don't even know why I haven't watched this, considering my love for this man. Afterlife, which was obviously written by the love of my life, Ricky Gervais. We then have Line of Duty and The Office. Never Have I Ever. Suits, Victoria, Misfits. The Beloved Summer. Queer Eye. Fleabag. Prison Break. Oh, we spoke about Prison Break. No? No, I'm getting confused with Supernatural.
Oh, God.
Game of Thrones, Sherlock Holmes, Broadchurch, The Good Doctor.
Okay.
Vikings, and Handmaid's Tale.
Vikings is something that I wanted to watch at one point. I think there's like 6 or 7 seasons of that. Queer Eye is actually really good. It's quite the tearjerker, I have to say.
Are you a fan?
Like, they're changing people's lives. Like, it's unbelievable. The way they've made it, it is quite the tearjerker. Like, people's lives are changing in that short instance.
I tried one episode. I couldn't do it. Maybe there's nothing wrong with changing people's lives. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I do it every day, okay? I do it as part of my job. I help people get back into work, right? But I'm not going to make a bloody song and dance about it. I don't know, just not my cup of tea. But maybe I need to enjoy it drunk. I don't know.
Yeah, or have a drinking game while watching it. Yeah.
The other reason, like we mentioned at the beginning, why this episode is quite prominent now is because one of the other questions that we asked in last week's episode was, and we didn't actually answer it, guys, so we were trying to figure it out and we didn't really get time to Google it in the end, whether Netflix releases episodes little by little. So it doesn't just release the whole season, but does it release episodes one by one? And the reason why we can now confirm this answer, guys, so apologies, you've been on a cliffhanger for a whole 2 weeks now, is because Ethan and I recently watched the Kanye West documentary, which fits very, very nicely with today's theme. I'm sure you'll agree, Ethan.
Yeah, I mean, Like, firstly, the scheduled release of the Kanye West documentary Genius was frustrating. I definitely felt it.
Why?
Because I wanted to watch them all. Because I was on it late, alright? So, cards on the table, guys. I got on it late. Yvonne was the one who told me to watch it. So by the time I could watch it, I could actually watch the first 2 episodes. And that got me hooked. Like, the first episode, the first, like, few minutes, I was like, ooh, this is some good stuff. By the end of the second episode, I was like, oh man, I need to wait. I need to wait now. This is terrible.
I basically made Ethan have a pact with me saying that you can't watch the 3rd episode without me. So glad I locked in that pact very, very soon before he realised that he could have just watched it by himself. So I'm glad I swerved in and stopped that from happening. That made me happy that you had to wait as well.
Yeah, I mean, you were lucky with that one.
Would you like to introduce today's topic, Ethan?
Yeah. So, simply speaking, can you separate the art from the artist? Which Kanye West is a perfect example of this. With his musical genius.
Jeen-yuhs!
But also his personal life shenanigans and opinions and views and everything that goes around in that yay circus of his.
Oh, couldn't have summarised it better myself, Ethan.
I'm sure you could.
Give me your thoughts. We got some intel specifically on this matter today. So again, thank you, Tash, for... I could have read it on whatever gossip magazines there are, Daily Mail articles there are in the world, but I knew my girl Tash was going to give me a better and more concise insight. And I shared it with Ethan because I'm really nice. So what is your take?
My take is that all the popular opinions about Kanye as a person, I kind of agree with. But I still love his music. I think musically, he's a savant. I'm not going to say genius all the time. But like, yeah, I think he's, you know, one of the top musically. And I don't really care about his personal life. That's my opinion on him.
So, first of all, because obviously his opinions are unpopular and he's been framed a bit of a dickhead because of everything that's going on, right? Yeah. So the first thing that springs to mind is this goes for all artists. So anybody that's been portrayed badly, and we're talking, let's just be honest and let's just be real here. Kanye is at the less serious side of the spectrum. He has not committed a crime. He's not that bad in the grand scheme of things if you then put him next to people like R. Kelly and potentially Michael Jackson.
Yep.
So with all 3 of them, people are saying because they have done something bad or they are perceived as a dickhead with Kanye, and I definitely don't want to say that I believe this one way or the other. We're only seeing the media's portrayal of all of this. Yeah. But do you then think we should be funding their music and giving them royalties if they are perceived to be a bad person?
I mean, that's the tricky question, isn't it? That's the main, I think, issue that a lot of people who believe that it's wrong to keep funding these people, to still give them money, you know, the cancel culture of it all. We should cancel that person so they can't make money off their product because that product is tainted by things that they have done. But I want to ask you, is the responsibility ours? Or is it the responsibility of platforms to stop them from being available?
Is this one of your curveballs that you were talking about?
This is one of them, actually. Yeah, it is one of them. But it's not even the best one.
As you can see from my face, you've already stumped me. Can I just tap out now?
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely want to hear what all the listeners think, because is it more important to stop it at the source, right? So Spotify, you know, I'm sure they still have R. Kelly on there. I haven't checked, but I'm sure they have. They still have Michael Jackson. They still have all the other people. Who else? Chris Brown, right? They probably still have Chris Brown on there. Is it the responsibility of us? Is it our responsibility to stop listening? Is it their responsibility to stop providing them a platform? I'm not saying one way is the right answer, one way is the wrong. I don't know what the answer is. Because platforms want to make money still. And if people still want to listen, then their, I guess, shareholders would be like, let's make money.
So the only parallel I can make is when it comes to big global issues as well, when it comes to the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the responsibility of us to wash our yogurt pot every morning, or is it the responsibility of the big factories in the BRIC countries to stop manufacturing so much and stop polluting the atmosphere? And is it the responsibility of the governments to stop producing this much pollution? That's the only parallel I can make. Is it up to us on a smaller scale? Personally, I don't know how much an individual can do. I don't know how much we can do as individuals when it comes to the environment and when it comes to purchasing music or downloading music. Because if it's just, say, you and I doing it, then that's not going to have the impact that we want, if that makes sense.
But maybe that kind of thinking is where the problem lies. Maybe I decide, if I stop listening to R. Kelly, that's not going to make a dent in his wallet. But if I thought, okay, yeah, I'll stop because I'm morally against what he's done, and then everyone else who felt the same way did that too, maybe Spotify and all the other music platforms would be like, look, clearly this is having a massive impact. People aren't listening anymore. Maybe we'll take him off. Maybe we won't. Maybe they still keep him on. At that point, it's definitely up to them to do something.
So could we somehow agree that this would only be possible if there was a mass backlash rather than a few individuals? I know a few individuals adds up to a mass, but I know there are people actively not listening to these people. This, which also brings me back to Kanye in a way of, I get really sick and tired of people saying, whenever I ask, do you like Kanye's music? And people say, nah, he's a dickhead. I'm like, okay, whatever your private opinions are, whatever your personal opinions are on an artist, that doesn't answer the question as to whether he has good music or not.
Yeah.
So for me, I completely agree. I can definitely separate the art from the person. But then, should we?
Oh, well, I mean, that's a different question then. That's a much harder question. But I can say this. I don't know the data. I don't have any evidence. I'm pretty sure this happens, or this happened. The day that Kanye released his new music video where he was beheading Pete Davidson, who, if people don't know, is Kim Kardashian's new boyfriend.
Was that the Easy video?
Yeah, the Easy video, yep. So I'm sure the day that dropped and people found out about it, people were probably really like, oh, Kanye, he's gone off the deep end. This is crazy. They went and watched that video. They fucking went and watched that video. I swear. People who were like hating on Kanye because they can't stand him as a person. Curiosity, man. They probably went and watched that video.
Yeah, that's it. It's curiosity. You want to be in the loop. You want to hear the juice. It's the same if anybody recorded a song being like, oh, there's some slagging off going on in that song. You'd want to know through sheer curiosity, right? Whether you have strict morals or not, people like the juice.
Yeah. And so if I had to answer the question, can I separate the art from the artist? My answer is yes and no.
Oh.
So this is one of my curveballs that I never really thought about until we started prepping for this episode.
Is this the idea that you wrote at 5 a.m. in the middle of the night because you couldn't sleep?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's the one that kept me up. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So
I'm going to brace myself. One sec. Okay, go.
Like traditionally, my answer's always been yes, I can definitely separate, all right? the music is the music, or the art is the art, the artist is the artist. Apart from one aspect, right? So I find that the answer is yes when it's negative. But the answer is no when it's positive. What do I mean by this? Do you know what I mean?
No, I need an example.
The best example is with actors, right? So if I like a particular actor, let's say Jamie Foxx or Ryan Reynolds, right? They can do no wrong, in my opinion. No matter how bad the movie is, I'm like, nah, I still love it. Even though objectively, terrible movie. But I'm still like, oh, I love this guy, he's my boy.
Oh, wow. So you would still back them up, even if it's shit?
I would still back him up, yeah.
And are there films that you've watched then where Jamie Foxx and Ryan Reynolds have acted in terrible films?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. For sure. And I mean, like, I think at a point, I'm like, it's still a bad movie. But I just want to like it so much that I really struggle to separate the art from the artist.
So will you go and watch every single thing that they've produced just because they're in it?
No, because there's way too many movies and TV shows for me to like on my list, but I always want to.
Do you ever read the reviews beforehand?
Not really. I'm not really big into movie reviews, to be honest.
Okay, that really shocks me, considering the amount of research you do into buying gadgets, right? You won't make a purchase. Don't look at me like that. You won't make a purchase until you have all the stats and the facts and you're like, right, now I'll buy it. And then you won't even read a movie review or a TV review before you go and watch it. Before you potentially waste up to 4 hours of your life.
Not really. I won't go out my way to review. Not really, to be honest. I might come across it and then just glance over it, but nah, it doesn't affect me too much.
So a poor review would not stop you from watching something with them in?
It wouldn't, no.
Do you know what? It's so funny that we've only been separating the art from the artist as a negative thing. I really enjoyed that. Can I?
You can see why this kept me up all night. I was like, I had to write this down. I've never thought about it this way either. And I can give you another example of how this affects me.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have celebrities they find hot, right?
Yeah.
So for me, in terms of female celebrities, they have to be good at their job now for me to find them hot. So, for example, name someone who's super hot. Who was the one in Transformers?
Megan Fox.
Yeah, objectively hot, but not my cup of tea because she can't act.
Do you know what? This is so weird. I remember asking you the other day, not to bring us back to the Kim and Kanye drama again, but do you remember I asked you the other day, do you find Kim Kardashian hot?
Oh, yeah.
And you said no.
Yeah.
Is that just your objective opinion, or is it because she's done nothing impressive in her work to make you find her attractive? Because by textbook standard, she's pretty good looking.
Yeah, I would say objectively, yeah. She's still not the best, but yeah, she's pretty good. But yeah, the lack of talent is just a massive turnoff. They have to be talented for me now. That's how serious this art and artist thing has become in my life.
So I can name a couple of celebrities. Aaron Paul, big one. So one of the stars in Breaking Bad. Do I only like what he's in because he's super attractive and I fancy the shit out of him? Am I just blindsided by his beauty and greatness that actually he's a bad actor in another film or a bad actor in another show?
That sounds similar to the way I feel about positive connections between art and artist. Or it could be the other way around, right? You find him attractive because he was in Breaking Bad and you love that show.
Yeah, maybe I'm still clinging on to his Jesse character that I root for him in other shows. So I would say I have a very bad objective opinion about these things.
I think most people probably do. It's a tough one. But I was wow, I've never thought about it this way. I always pride myself on being able to separate the two, but I realise I'm not, especially when it's good.
I really appreciate that. Can I now throw you one?
Go on.
So I said there were two things that sprung to mind when you were talking about your opinions on the Kanye documentary and your opinions on Kanye in general. The second thing that I realised, particularly when I was getting my intel, is that, like you said, the popular opinions about Kanye is that he's not particularly favoured. He's obviously putting out really terrible videos about Pete Davidson and slagging people off, and he's clearly outraged and he's clearly got a lot of opinions. He's quite outspoken, right? But then where does the line draw between him being perceived, in quotation marks, a dickhead, and him actually having a mental health condition? And this is the reason why he's acting out. So mental health is obviously a topic that is really prevalent these days due to a variety of things, but it's really evident since the pandemic. So do you think it's fair that people are just saying he's unhinged, but actually are a lot of these things that he's doing caused by his mental health? Because I'm pretty sure he's been diagnosed with bipolar. In my opinion, he's doing all of this horrible stuff because potentially he has bipolar, he has mental health problems. So we're quite quick to blame people, the celebrity world, for doing bad things, but actually is the reason Kanye is doing this because of his mental health. We wouldn't slag people off in everyday life. I wouldn't slag off my friend for being incompetent if she's got mental health problems, you know what I mean?
But you probably would if she was threatening to kill people.
But I wouldn't call her a dickhead. I'd be like, this person needs help.
Okay, fair. Yeah.
This person needs professional help. Just because he's in the limelight, we don't have a right to slag them off, but their persona, their celebrity status is for everybody to see. But like Kanye needs professional medical help. He needs seeing to by a professional, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, whoever it might be he needs to be seen by. There's a reason why he's doing this stuff. It's because of his mental health. No?
Yeah, and I think no, I completely agree. And he needs to get that help. It's up to his support system and everyone around him to help get him that help, right? Us as the general public, we can only react to what he's doing, right? We don't really have a proper way to kind of direct him in what he should be doing and really kind of affecting that part of his life. We couldn't even react. And so if he still comes out with this kind of stuff, that responsibility as a public figure, this comes with the territory, right? You're never going to escape this. And so people around him should be protecting him in a way.
But then would you agree that the documentary, so anybody who is maybe questionable about Kanye and his motives, and the documentary gave us a huge insight into his mental health battles that maybe we wouldn't see ordinarily, would you agree? Maybe I'm saying I don't think I'd be as sympathetic and empathetic as I am currently if I hadn't seen that documentary.
And I feel the same way as well. And who put out that documentary? Kanye himself. So if he wants us to be more sympathetic, yeah, he needs to put out, or he needs to have a system in place to kind of let people know that, one, he's in this kind of mind state, and two, that he is getting help and there is a support system around him. If we didn't know anything, we just heard what he said, I mean, how can you argue with people when they call him a dick, right? You can't really if you don't know anything about him. And how many people honestly watch all 3 parts of Genius, right? So those people wouldn't know.
True. But what you were saying about they're in the limelight, it kind of comes with the territory.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you.
Go on.
So do celebrities have a responsibility to be role models in today's society?
So it turns out Yvonne and I have a lot to say on this topic. We're sorry for leaving you on a cliffhanger, but definitely tune into part 2, because you know it gets juicy.